Hello fellow Udacitians, my name is Sergey and I'm a graduate from Senior Web Developer Nano degree. I'm from Belarus and currently I work at UXpression. It's a company that specializes at software for UX designers. So today I would like to make a quick tutorial, a little introduction into server-side rendering and isomorphic applications, and I would like to show you how easy it is to create an isomorphic application today. So maybe it will inspire someone to create your isomorphic application. So at first I would like to tell you a bit about server-side rendering and isomorphic applications, and then we will jump into Nuxt.js. It is an SSR library for Vue.js framework. So if you are not familiar with Vue.js, that's not a big deal because all the concepts will be very basic and you can, I believe, understand it very quickly. So what are server-side rendered applications anyway? Well, to understand them, let's make a quick recall of how our web applications evaluated during the years. So at first we had some classic web applications. They were fully generated on the server. The server was responsible for HTML, and on each request from the client, a new HTML was generated and sent to the client with a response. So these applications had several pros. They were very quick to load. They were great for search engine optimization because all the meta tags were available immediately after page load. And well, they were pretty simple to implement because you didn't have to deal with a lot of complicated stuff. At the same time, they for sure had some cons, such as they were non-interactive because, well, very few JavaScript was used at those days, and you had to download new HTML on each request. So when you switched to a new page, you had to download the whole page again, even if you wanted to update just a small part of it. Then with the development of Ajax technology, we saw an emergence of single-page applications. Now they were highly interactive because they were highly reliant on the JavaScript and on the client-side logic. Now we could only fetch the data that was needed for small updates to the pages, so we didn't have to generate new HTML each time, and we introduced client-side routing. So when you clicked a link and you navigated to a new page, you didn't have to download the whole new HTML for that page. You could only take some template from browser cache, for example, and fill that template with the data fetched from the server. However, these applications also had some cons, such as they were a pain for SEO, and their initial load time could be slower than before because, well, you had not only download some HTML, but you actually had to download JavaScript, some HTML templates. You had to compile these templates in the runtime on the client, and so all these little tidbits, they took time, and so your application could appear a bit smaller for the end user. And so today we got another iteration of applications which we call isomorphic. So basically they combine all the pros from classic web applications and single page applications. They are great for search engines, they load fast, and they are highly interactable. So, and one of the biggest pros of these apps is the single code base, which you can use both on the server and on the client. If you are familiar with some component-based libraries, for example Angular or React or Vue.js or whatever else, these components that you write in these libraries, it turns out that you can render them to HTML strings on the server, and you can render them to actual DOM on the client. And so if you configure your application properly, you can, well, get a single code base and write your components both for the server and for the client. You just need different rendering functions that will render them either to strings on the server or to actual DOM on the client. However, SSR applications are rather hard to implement because you have to deal with a lot of synchronization and with a lot of little challenges to actually start your isomorphic app. And it can add an additional load to your server because nowadays applications have some kind of a tree structure, and if previously you could generate plain HTML on the server, now you have to traverse some tree structure and render the objects from this structure into actual string, and maybe fetch some data that is deeply nested in some of the components down the tree. So all these little things can add some load on your server, but it's not much of a deal because the pros of isomorphic application, they really overcome these cons. You should also understand what isomorphic apps do not do. So they do not replace your API. They are responsible for generating HTML on the server and synchronizing this HTML with the client-side components, but they nevertheless should rely on some API layer. And of course it must be done on the server. So isomorphic applications are not about it. They also cannot directly access your database, and yes, of course, they can access some in-browser databases, but they cannot access your server-side database. So again, you would need some server-side layer to access your data. And also, not any JS code is suitable for SSR because if previously for your client-side applications, for your SPAs, you could use almost any client-side library and you could just drop it into the project and use it right out of the box. Now you should think that this library can be evaluated not inside the browser but inside a server, and you can thus you can lack the browser APIs needed for this library. So you should carefully check whether the library is suitable for SSR or not. I can say that there are certain methods that can help you with this, and actually you can think of the ways how you can use any library inside of SSR. However, this is out of the scope of this mini tutorial, and I think you can find the answers to these questions online. So what challenges we face when we want to create an SSR application? So first of all, we should think about routing, because now we are not just using routes from client side or server side, but we use them synchronously, and we should think about how we must synchronize this stuff between server and client. We should think about how we fetch our data, because now our components can fetch data not only from the browser when they are rendered inside the browser, and now they can fetch data actually when they are on the server environment. And we should carefully choose data fetching libraries, because there are a lot of libraries that can work both on the client and on the server. We should think about component matching, because when HTML comes from the server and our client-side JavaScript bootstraps, it needs some mechanism to correspond this HTML to the actual components from the library and again synchronize it. We should think about state hydration and how it is done. And if you worked by this, I mean If you worked with such libraries as Redux or maybe MobX, Flux, Vuex for Vue.js, you know that a lot of data is shared across your components, and it is a good approach, a good practice to store this data inside state management library. Use some state management library for this, and now you should think about how you can hydrate your state on the server and then send it to the client and synchronize this state between client and server again. And of course you should think about how you bundle your code, because we are all accustomed to modular approach during development of our applications, and now you should think how you should bundle your code, because it will be used both on the server and the client, and well, it's not the challenge. However, I have good news for you, because all of these challenges have already been solved, and you just need to find a suitable tool for your SSR application. And what I want to show you is a library called Nuxt.js. This is a library for Vue.js framework. It is highly influenced by another SSR library called Next.js, which is written for React. So if you are from React world, you can also check Next.js library. And well, let's just take a look at what we have in Nuxt.js. So here I have scaffolded a simple application with Nuxt.js. You can do the same thing. All you need to do is install Vue CLI. It is done with npm or yarn. You can write yarn add vue-cli. I have already installed it. And then to start a Nuxt project, you run this command: init nuxt-community /starter-template. And if you hit enter, your Nuxt.js project will be scaffolded. So let's have a quick overview of the file structure of our project, and then we'll jump to some specific concepts. In fact, I would like to speak more about routing and about data fetching inside of this application, and then show you how we can actually see that our components can be both rendered on the server and on the client. So let's take a look at file structure. .nuxt is a folder where our build project resides. Assets is for our styles, for our images, some static assets, fonts, etc. Components is where our reusable Vue.js components are placed. Layouts is something like a quick big component that shows the structure of our web application. So if you, for example, want to have a public page which has header, for example, you can have several pages and each of them has header. You can place header into the layout and then use this layout on different pages, and thus you just another way of code reuse, you can say. Middleware is we'll skip it for now, and it's just functions that can be passed into the rendering of our components. So pages is about routing, and I will speak more about it. Plugins are used for bootstrapping libraries that lack, for example, server-side support, or to include some plugins for Vue.js and this kind of stuff. Static folder has our static assets such as favicons or maybe some images, and store is for Vuex store, and this is also out of the scope of our tutorial, so I won't touch this folder. I would like to concentrate on this pages folder. What we have here is a simple index view file, and basically this is the root of our application. We can run our dev server with dev command. Let's start it. Okay, and now we can head to localhost 3000, and boom, we have our server-side application ready. That's it, basically, yeah. So what the pages folder is for. Anything that you place inside this folder, any file, will be mapped to an actual route inside your application. So if I add, for example, about.view file here, and I'll add a template for this page, it will be just a header. I will save, hold reload. By the way, it is configured inside Nuxt.js. And now I can head to localhost /about, and boom, we have another page. What is cool about this pages folder is that we can also have dynamic routes. So to have a dynamic route, we'll create a users folder here and place two files inside of it. One will be index.view and another one will be underscore user id.view. I will explain about this file in a few moments. So first let's head to users/index.view. Here I will add another template. It will also have only one element. It will be a header and it will be our users page. I will save, and now I can navigate to localhost/users. However, we can have some dynamic routes inside of our application. For example, I would like to fetch data for user with ID 1 or for user with ID 2. However, at the moment we receive an error, and this is very easily handled. We just need to add a template for our user ID template. I can add also a header here, and if I save, I will get this route working. However, I would like to access this dynamic part of our route inside our component, and this is very easily done. For this, we will need to configure our component a bit. So in Vue.js, we have single file components, and it means that we can have our template, our script, and maybe some styles inside a single file, and Vue.js will understand how to parse it. So here I would like to configure our component to actually be able to access this part of our route. So I will need to export default object, and in it I will create a computed property. Computed property is just some piece of derived data which you can access inside your template. So I would like to access user ID, and to access my route information I can use return this dot route dot params dot user ID. This user ID corresponds to the name of our file, and now I can use this piece of data inside of our template. I need a single root element, and here I can access this user ID. Let's save, and now you can see that we have changed the user. I can access, say, any number here, and boom. So how can we actually see that our component has been rendered on the server or not on the client? Nuxt.js has a global variable that is available through the use of Webpack, and this variable is called process.server, and it will be true if the component was rendered on the server, and it will be false if the component was rendered on the client. to access, I will access this variable inside of async data method in our object that configures our component. Async data is a method that is called once on the server or once on the client on the pages components, and what it does, it creates an object that will store a data for your component. So you can fetch some API, you can call some API here, you can fetch data from another application, you can simply create an object with data here, and it will be accessible inside your template. So what I'm going to do here is I'm going to return an object that will actually store our data, and I will have a single property here. Let's call it render source, and it will evaluate we'll check our process.server variable, and if it is true, we'll return server, and if it is false, we will return client. And now I can actually access this piece of data inside of my template, and let's update. So what you see here is hot reloading took place, and only some part of our component was updated. Thus we see that it was rendered on the client, and if I reload the page, we can see that our component was rendered on the server, and it was actually sent as an HTML. Now I'm going to show you another cool feature of Nuxt.js, and you will actually see that the very same component can be both rendered on the server and on the client. For this we will need to use, I will just enlarge this window. Okay, let's do it like here. So for this I will need to use a built-in Nuxt.js component called Nuxt child, Nuxt link. So this is a similar component to just an A tag. It shows it is used for navigation side of our application. So I can tell where I'm going to navigate, and I'm going to navigate. So what I'm going to do here is I'm going to parse this string, because all params are strings and I want to have it as a number. So I would like to route it to, let's use a string template here, and I want to navigate to users dot user ID +1, and here I will have user ID +1, and I will have another link that will navigate to user ID -1. So it's like a pagination. Yeah, you can navigate between users with different IDs. User, and let's place user here. And now you will see that the very same component can be both rendered on the client and on the server. So hot reload. Yeah, let's also wrap it into the div. Okay, that's good. Let's reload. So here, and a little bit of styling again. Let's place them inside of p paragraphs so they won't appear in line. So yeah, here we have our links. Let's move to user 10, for example. As you can see, it was rendered on the server. I can reload the page and it's still rendered on the server. And what happens if I navigate to another user? Boom, and this component was rendered on the client. So the very same component, Vue.js component, which we have just written, was rendered inside two different environments. So actually, I think this is a really small and quick introduction into SSR, but I hope that it inspired you enough to try it and to play with it by yourself. So I hope that your next application which you will write, you will try to make it with the SSR approach. So thank you for your time, and if you have any questions, I would gladly answer them. Have a nice day.